Hello and welcome everyone to our cooking class this evening. This is our gut health cooking class with special guest Brenda Rogers, who is a nutritionist and a naturopath, among many other qualifications. Tomorrow, I'm going to send out an email to all of you with the recipes from what we do tonight, as well as some extra info and the links to Brenda's website so that you can get more info. So if you have any questions throughout this evening, please feel free to put them in the chat box and we'll do our best to answer. Also at the very end, I don't mind staying back for a few minutes to see if anyone wants to come off mute and ask other questions. But what we're going to do, I'll introduce Brenda in just 1 minute. I wanted to just really quickly, because I know some of the people who are joining this evening don't yet have a Thermomix, and this is kind of a joint Thermomix Gut Health class, how to use the Thermomix to help with gut health. But if you don't have a Thermomix, it's still going to be great tips for you as well. But just for interest's sake, I will just quickly show you the Thermomix. I guess most people who invest in one of these amazing machines are wanting to save time, be healthy, save money, eat from scratch, get some good taste and variety into their lifestyles as well. Just super quickly, and if you want more information about the Thermomix, speak to me after or speak to your consultant. But I do just want to quickly show you all the modes we have on here. So this is where you can do guided cooking, which I'll show you a little bit later. But we have all these extra modes on the Thermomix, and the scales, so that as you add your ingredients, you don't need to use measure cups. We've got a kneading dough mode, turbo, a self-clean mode, rice cooker, egg boiler, kettle, warm up, a special ferment mode, which is really great for making your own yogurt, slow cook, sous vide, and we've got our new peeler mode as well. But yeah, so many things the Thermomix can do: blend, mill, chop, grind, cook while you leave the kitchen. So it does the stirring for you while you go do whatever else you need to do. Steams, mills, it really just does everything. And so the idea is to have one machine in your kitchen that does everything. So that's the Thermomix in a super quick nutshell. And now I would like to just introduce you to Brenda, who is our gut health specialist for this evening. I've done a lot of research over the years, and I try and incorporate good recipes into my family's life, but I wouldn't call myself an expert. And that's why I called Brenda, said, "Do you want to come do this with us tonight?" And she was like, "Yes, I'd love to." So welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. And I'll hand over to you to introduce the topic.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my kitchen. And I've got my apron on. I'm very proud to wear an apron. I know that they have kind of become symbols of something else, but I believe that claiming our kitchen, reclaiming our kitchen in some cases, and for me I call it being the sovereign of my kitchen. So that means that I'm very fussy about who I let in. Some companies' foods are not welcome in my kitchen. So I am a foodie and a naturopath, and I work primarily with menopause. I do a lot with menopause, and that's kind of the naturopathic side of things that I do. But I love, as a Western A Price chapter leader and a nutritionist, I love getting women back in the kitchen and loving it. And, it goes a lot deeper than that, because when we're the sovereign of our own kitchens, we're the healers of our own bodies, the healers of our family. And I think it's a very sacred role. So it's my delight to be here with you. And given that gut health is a major issue these days, it's just like every second person has something going on. Nearly all of my clients have something going on. If it's not the pancreas, it'll be the liver or the stomach or the bowels or constipation, or I don't know if any of you guys can relate, but because I imagine you're foodies yourself. But it just seems like we're set up to have gut issues. I think even our drinking water having chlorine and There's another one that they put in which kills some of the bacteria in our guts, the good bacteria, not to mention antibiotics in food. Sugar makes everything worse, getting infections like fungal infections and candida and all that kind of stuff is just so common. So it's really topical to look at what you can do to improve and restore, or it's harder to restore. Maintaining is the best, the best option. So I'm going to give you a few of my hints and tips tonight and go through a couple of recipes. Now, Laura, I understand you're going to show us something about ghee. Is that correct? And
yeah,
also,
I've got that ready.
And also, could you please tell me what time we're finishing, just so I know?
Oh, yeah, I like to stick to an hour just because I know people get Zoom fatigue, but okay, we can do whatever we can do.
Yeah, and Denise, you're not on mute, so we might get you to pop on mute. As mute. Laura, if you could do that video, and then I'll speak to it once we've seen it.
Yeah, great. Okay, I will
mute now.
Oh, I'll do it for you, Denise. That's
no?
okay. There we go. So I'm going to share this screen and ghee takes a long time, and that's why I've pre-recorded myself making it so that in the video it only takes a minute. So I will mute myself and Hi, I wanted to show you now how to make ghee in your Thermomix. And the reason you would make ghee is it's a really good fat that has fat-soluble vitamins, omega-3 fatty acids. It's good for gut health, but it's also good to boost your immunity as well. So using ghee in your cooking is a great ingredient to go for. But you can make it in your Thermomix, which is a lot, it just saves some money compared to buying it in the supermarket. The first thing you can do if you want to is make your own butter in the Thermomix. That's a whole different recipe demonstration, but that's really quick and easy to do just using cream. But once you have your butter, you want it chopped in cubes. I've got 500 grams of unsalted butter here. And I've put ghee in my weekly planner, so I'm just going to press the recipe and press start cooking. So all it wants me to do is add the butter. The scales have come up, making that nice and easy. Just scrape all that in. Perfect. Press next, and we are doing this without the measure cup, so just leaving that hole open on your lid. We're cooking this it's going to be 2 hours total. It starts with 60 minutes at 120 degrees speed 1, and then we're going to come have a look, and the next step is to do that process again, and then I'll show you the next steps. But for now, I'll come back when that is done. Okay, the ghee has finished cooking in the Thermomix now. You can see the lights are red, and I want to show you what it looks like. Hopefully you can see it's, I tilt my camera a little bit. It's very dark in color, rich. We've got some dark brown milk solids at the bottom. We're going to strain those out to make our ghee. And to do that, you can use a nut milk bag, or what I've got here is some muslin cloth in my simmer basket. So just grab your simmer basket, line it with, whatever. If you don't have muslin, you could use chucks or a few layers of paper towel. I don't know about you. I've seen people use that, but yeah, I'm going to use my muslin cloth. I've doubled it over so that it's 2 layers, and I'm just going to pour that through. It's got a beautiful, rich color. It smells so good. I love it. I love that smell. Now the milk solids that we're straining out, which I don't know if you can see them, I'll have to show you against the white. You can save that and use that in something. You can put it in cooking. Some people put it on toast or over popcorn or ice cream or something. It's just, it's cooked butter basically, but that's getting all the dairy out of our ghee. I'm just scraping it all out really well. I could show you what the milk solids look like. Yeah, just little brown dots, lots of little brown dots. So yes, you don't have to waste that if you don't want to, but the ghee is rich yellow liquid that we've got out there. So if I lift this up, you can see that all coming out there into my bowl. We're going to keep that in a sterilized jar in the pantry. You can keep it in a dark pantry for, I hear mixed. Some say a month up to 3 months, or you can keep it in the fridge for somewhere between 3 and 6 months. It's as long as you keep it clean, and as long as no water or food gets in it, use a stainless steel spoon when scooping out or pour it out of the jar, it will be fine to stay, good for quite a while. I would say you'd use it before it would go bad. Okay, now that I've strained that out, I'll just show you what the milk solids look like. I've got this really rich brown in color, and then we've got our ghee in there in the bowl. So super easy. It took me no time at all just to throw it in the Thermomix, do it, and then strain that out. And I've got ghee ready to use in cooking. So and ghee has a really high cooking point, so it's really good for frying. It also makes things a lot crispier than using butter. Yeah, it's just lots of good reasons to want to use ghee, and probably you've seen it in a lot of Indian cooking as well. That's their preferred method of fat to use. So yeah, but that's how to make ghee. Sorry, and then I will just show you. Here I am. After I had it in that bowl, I put it in this jar. It actually fits perfectly in a 500 ml jar, and it's cooled down, so it's nice liquidy liquid gold we have here. So Brenda's going to tell you a bit about why you might want to use ghee, I think. I mute myself.
Yeah, well, we're talking specifically about gut health, and the beautiful thing about ghee is it has no milk solids left in it. So somebody who's sensitive to dairy can use it when often they can't use butter. But fats are really important for the right balance of bacteria in the gut, and they're also important for the fat soluble nutrients that you mentioned, Laura, like particularly vitamin A and vitamin D. And we are often, many people are deficient in these nutrients, and those nutrients are essential for so many things, including immune health, which we really want right now, or we always really want that. But also what's happened over the last 50 years or so is that we've kind of gone on this low fat path, and we're now finding that that's quite detrimental, and that we have now a diet too high in grains and sugar, and grains and sugar upset gut health. And so eating more fat and balancing your protein is really important for the right bacteria. Having the right fats helps you have beautiful skin. It's important for the mucous membranes in the gut for so many reasons, as you mentioned, Laura. And typically what we often do is we fry things in olive oil. And olive oil is, like all oils, is sensitive to heat, and it's not meant to be used for high heat for frying. And so what we want to use for when you're frying things up usually is a saturated fat. And even though they've had a bad rap for the last 50 or 60 years, the wisdom is coming back that they're actually extremely important for the body. And so I'm a big fan of using ghee for even for on bread if you can't have butter. I'm a fan of the keto diet, just not all the time, but especially if you're weight conscious or struggled with your weight, or you have autoimmune conditions, that kind of thing. I find a keto diet, a nutrient-dense keto diet, not bulletproof coffee kind of keto diets, or the paleo ones. And so I have a recipe here for you for keto chocolates. Now, as a Western Price Foundation chapter leader, I'm not supposed to like chocolate. I'm not supposed to endorse chocolate, but honestly, I think I love chocolate. It's my vice, really. So I try to do the best thing and I make my own. And so I want to show you some keto chocolates, but let me first get you some out of the fridge that I've already made so I can show you what they look like. Bear with me for 1 second while I grab my stash here. Now, it takes a little bit of effort, but if you're Thermomix ladies, then you're used to a little bit of effort. These are my heart-shaped ones. And you can see sometimes there's a little bit of fat sort of comes to the top. I really don't mind that. These are keto chocolates. I've put a macadamia nut in the middle just to kind of do something different. And they're largely coconut oil and cocoa butter. These ones I did a little bit differently. They're in a little, patty pan type thing, and they're actually layered. So there's a chocolate layer, then an almond butter layer, which the almond butter I grind in the Thermomix, and then another chocolate layer. So how professional is that, right? 1 or 2 of those after dinner, and oh my goodness, I call them more sort of fat bombs because, I suppose if you're coming off, a lot of us need to unplug from sugar. We've had sugar cravings or carb cravings. We love our bread and we kind of a little bit addicted to the high that sugar gives us. I find that if you just come off sugar and you don't increase your fats, then you will often feel really deprived. And deprivation is the worst thing when you're trying to manage your, the way that you eat, because suddenly all you can think about is food, and there is actually more to life than just thinking about food. So the recipe you will get tomorrow. This is the cocoa butter. I buy it from the source, Bulk Foods. And the recipe calls for 50 grams. And this is my Thermomix. I don't have the fancy new one that Laura's got. I've got, how old is mine, Laura? Years old. I think I've had it 10 years or something.
Yeah, that one would be about 10 years old, I'd say.
It's just been my best friend, honestly.
Yeah, it's a workhorse. They keep going. So that's okay. Whatever model you have, this is going to work in.
Yeah, it's a bit more manual. I have to kind of press buttons to weigh things. But it's 50 grams of cocoa butter. And not cocoa butter. Yeah, cocoa butter. No, yeah, cocoa butter. And this stuff smells like chocolate, even without the rest of it. It's just the essence of real chocolate. And you'll find that most of the chocolate you buy in the supermarket doesn't have any in it because it's expensive. The other thing that we want to do with fat, see, this is a good fat. Coconut oil is good fat. Sometimes I'll put butter in it, which is a good fat. Whereas your vegetable oils, you really have to be careful of. You really have to watch anything that's like a processed seed oil, an industrialized seed oil, because they're highly inflammatory in the body. The gut doesn't like it, the liver doesn't like it, and they are the cause, not even just the contributor, they are cause of cancer and other diseases. So we've kind of been told or misled to think that vegetable oils are, because they're vegetable, that they're healthy, but there's nothing vegetable about them. They come from seeds. So that's one of my pet hates. And then I buy this, you can buy coconut oil. This is just from Woolies. I love coconut oil. If you're not a big fan of the coconut oil taste, then I would use a little bit more cocoa butter. I've done 50% cocoa butter, 50% real butter, and that's divine. It's really nice. You have to keep them in the fridge, otherwise they melt. And so so I said 50 grams of the, to get the thing open, ladies. Can't get it open. You have to get the 50 grams of, there we go. Cocoa butter, 350 grams of coconut oil, if you can get it. Oh my gosh, how embarrassing.
We've all been there, Brenda.
And I'm not even old yet. How do old people cope? I know this is probably terrible, but don't watch me.
I did a trick where I turn it upside down and put a butter knife in.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there you go. See, look, I've damaged this thing a bit, but it's good. All right, so I'm just going to whack in 350. And that's kind of our base, along with the cocoa or cacao, really. That's our base, and then we can do so many things with that. And we'll talk about sweeteners in a minute. This makes quite a lot of, here we go, almost there, 350, perfect. I'm just going to put that on a nice low heat. I think the recipe, I kind of don't even follow the recipe anymore, but I think it's 60. The recipe will come to you tomorrow. The sweetness, so I'm going to add cocoa powder in a minute. And I buy this cocoa powder also from the source. It's organic, kind of, the Dutch cocoa is nicer, like less bitter, but much more processed. So I try to get it as natural as possible. And also I've weaned myself off being a sweet tooth, so I can have much less sweetener now, and I still appreciate it. So wherever you're at with sugar, if you're diabetic or you're keto or whatever you're doing, there's various options for sweetener. Obviously, your maple syrup or honey, they work quite well. I find honey tends to separate, unless I put it in the freezer really quickly to make it set. The honey tends to separate down to the bottom, and then the chocolate's not so nice. But I've been experimenting, ladies, with something recently. I haven't talked to anybody about this, but in also in the sauce, I'm not getting a cut from the sauce, by the way, but I do love what they have. There's a couple of things that you can get there, or I've bought them wholesale because I'm making up sort of bigger batches of them. And I got this Mesquite Powder. It's a bit hard to see. It's like, some of you might know of maca powder. Maca powder is a great hormonal balancer, especially for menopausal women. And you can buy maca powder in the supermarket. I just kind of get it in bulk, and it's kind of got a multi flavor to it. So I add a little bit of that in, and then I'll add a little bit of this mesquite, and the other one is lacuma. They're sort of, I think they're in what we call the adaptogen family. So like ginseng, you know how ginseng is great for giving you resilience and energy in the nervous system and the immune system. These adaptogens help you adapt to stress. And so I'm all about making your diet therapeutic, right? Making it medicinal. And these powders just add a little bit of nourishment to the body, a little bit of vitality. And so I put those in mainly instead of sugar, and I find them sweet enough. The other thing I've been doing lately is making up this mix and leaving out the cocoa powder and having like a blonde chocolate, mixing it in with quite a bit of almond butter and making a blonde chocolate. It's still a fat bomb. So I buy some roasted peanuts and make my own peanut butter. And sometimes I'll make the chocolate so that the peanut butter goes on the inside. So they're peanut butter chocolates, which are amazing. This was my almond butter. I think I over roasted them a little bit in the oven. I don't know. I think I just bought the almonds from Woolworths, and I'm just not sure that they were as fresh as I really wanted them to be. So next time I'd probably do a bit more research and get them. So anyway, it's all trial and error, isn't it, ladies? And then here's the cocoa powder. I've got one of these chocolate molds. It's just one of those sort of molds, and that's how I make my heart ones. And then there's a few different things I do to flavor. As I mentioned, there's the peanut butter, or you could do macadamia butter. That would be nice, or almond butter. I'll add those sweeteners in just as a base. They're not really a flavorer. They're just a sweetener. Other things that I've done is add essential oils. Some of you ladies might be into, I used to work for Young Living, so I've got a whole stash of Young Living oils, and I'll flavor my chocolates with a peppermint or an orange, or sometimes a tangerine, sometimes a frankincense, just to mix it up a little bit. So you can do whatever you like. I think the orange one tastes a little bit like, Jaffas, and peppermint ones are amazing. They're really nice, very cooling in the mouth. So that's almost done. I'm going to add the cocoa and let it go on a little bit further. And you need a fair amount of cocoa. What I like about this is that it's now a milk-free chocolate. And honestly, you'd be surprised what they put in store-bought chocolate. You'd be surprised what they put in store-bought chocolate. Sometimes in the really cheap stuff, there's not even any chocolate in it. It's lots of artificial color and something that makes it solid. And yeah. Once you make your own chocolates and you get pretty fancy at it, then it's hard to go back to that other stuff. So while that's going, just mixing there, I was going to continue talking about gut health. Now, Laura, are there any questions yet about chocolates or fats and gut health?
No, the only question we've had is where to get the cocoa butter, or the cacao butter. And the source is basically that's all where I've got it from, honest to goodness, or the source. So.
Go Vita also has it, or if I'm in the hills, like I don't know, some of you might be in the hills, but the Rainbow Organics in the Castle Towers has it as well. Different brand. It's in a sort of a black and gold packaging. It's quite expensive, but you don't, like I said, you don't use much. It was 50 grams for that. So while that's, I think that's the basics. I'm going to add, I don't use honey much, as I mentioned. I'm going to add some maple syrup to sweeten it. And a little bit of mesquite. So I'm just going to do that. You don't need very much. And a little bit of mesquite here. Some richness, it adds real richness to the flavour. You can use mesquite in hot chocolates and that kind of thing as well. All right. So I discovered mesquite when I was in South Africa. I went to a couple of different places where they had like coconut milk hot chocolates, and they flavoured it all. So that's what, can you see that? Pour it on my computer. It's not my day, is it? Yeah, so yeah, it's beautiful. And then I pop it in the tray here. And I'm going to just demonstrate, and then I'll do it a little bit later. But I just fill in the obviously the molds, and then pop it in the freezer so that it doesn't separate. That's the best thing you can do, is put it in the freezer. We'll come back to that one in a minute. And in the meantime, I wanted to talk to you a bit more about the other things that we need for gut health. And that would be, I'm talking quite specifically really about macronutrients. And the other thing that we wanted to talk about is fermented foods. So for most people, we've taken fermented foods out of the diet in the last generation or two. It used to be a huge part of the average diet, and partly because, you know, you'd have a gazillion cabbages in the summer and you had to preserve them somehow. I think cabbage is one of the most popular vegetables in the world, and partly because it can be easily made into sauerkraut or kimchi or variations on that theme. And it's super good for the gut. Now, if you react to fermented foods, that means your gut's really unhappy and you need to kind of heal the gut first. But now I make my own sauerkraut. And Laura, are you going to show us a little bit more on that?
Yep, I'm ready to show how to make sauerkraut in the Thermomix whenever you're ready for me to do that.
All right, I'll just show you mine, and then we can do that. This was, I should show you a couple of things actually. So this is my red cabbage, and it's got caraway seeds in it because I love the taste of caraway seeds. So that's one fermented food. In here, I've made an apple cider vinegar drink. So apple cider vinegar is another fermented food. Super, super good for the gut. Helps stomach. So some things help the pancreas, some things help the liver, but this is specifically great for the stomach. And it's got some lemon juice, some honey, and some apple cider vinegar in it. You might be able to see up there behind my Thermomix, I've got fire tonic. I'm making some fire tonic. And directly behind my Thermomix, I have kombucha. Over to you, Laura.
Okay, so I wanted to just really quickly show you how you can make sauerkraut in your Thermomix, and there's a whole heap of other fermented foods. Even in the search bar in Cookity, you could just type in the word ferment or fermentation and see what comes up. There's a whole heap of great recipes you can use. But just for today, hopefully you can see that my screen seems to be really bright. It's super easy. So the scales have come up. I don't know if you can see that. There we go. And it's asking me to add in white cabbage. I also have half purple cabbage because I love the color of purple cabbage. So I'm doing a half-half. And also, you know, anything that has that rich color, the purple cabbage I know has more vitamin A, more vitamin C and iron than the white cabbage, although it's all good either way. But yeah, I'm doing half-half just for fun. And actually just because I already had some purple cabbage in my fridge to use. So that's the other real reason. And so now it's asking me to put in some salt. So I actually mill my own salt in the Thermomix. It takes 10 seconds. So I get the rock salt. And the reason I do that is no additives. So anything you're buying that's pre-processed, they've usually added some sort of additives in so that it doesn't clump or it doesn't, basically clump, anti-caking agents, they call it. So sorry, I'm trying to find my half teaspoon now. So that's why I mill my own ingredients in the Thermomix, and that way I know it's just no additives. And as you can see, it does clump sometimes. That's okay. Just give it a bit of a bash and it goes back to being powder. And when you're putting it in your food, it powders back anyway, as long as it's not the rocks. So I've put in 500 grams of cabbage and 1.5 teaspoons of salt. Now it's asking me to put the lid on. And we're just basically chopping this 3 seconds on speed 5. So that's done, and we're going to transfer that into a bowl, and then we're going to do the next batch. So instead of doing it all in one big batch, it just processes more evenly if we do it in 2 batches. So I'll just set that aside. You can see how beautifully it chops in just 3 seconds. Saves you so much time rather than having to slice the cabbage by hand, although you can do that too. So you can imagine, you know, for coleslaw or whatever, this is a good way to do it as well. And I love the color of that half. It's really pretty. Okay, so that's half the batch there. Don't worry if you don't get it all out, because what we're doing is adding more cabbage in next. So tear that. And then I'm just going to add the rest in, which should be, oh, it's a bit more. That's okay. I'll put it all in. And then more salt. Another 1.5 teaspoons of salt. And that's it. That's the only 2 ingredients in your sauerkraut. Or as Brenda said, you can add some caraway as well. I've seen recipes that have that. Or just other little flavor boosts you can do. You can also do raw beetroot. Just peel the beetroot and you can chop that in your Thermomix. Same amount of time, just you can put it in with the cabbage. You could do half or whole. Where'd I put my lid? So that all goes in, and we'll chop that another 3 seconds. Okay, so now I actually need to give this a stir, because there was a little bit up the top that didn't make its way down. And so anytime you're not happy with what the Thermomix has done, there's actually a back button up the top. Just go back and do it again. That's okay. Okay. So now we're going to knead it with our hands, because we really want the moisture to release from the cabbage. And basically, so make sure your hands are really clean. So I'm going to wash my hands, or you could use gloves, I guess. But yeah, so basically we're going to knead that and then press it down firmly into the jar. So I don't know how boring that is to watch. Whether Brenda, you wanted to talk while I do it, or you want me just to carry on?
Yeah, I'd like to hear from our ladies. So if you're already incorporating, just to type in the chat, if you're already incorporating fermented foods into your, daily diet, or if there's a reason that you don't, or if you have some questions. I mean, sometimes for some of us it went out of favor and we haven't taken. Yogurt. Yogurt is a naturally fermented food, which if you don't have too much sugar in it, then of course it's fabulous. And by the way, some of the yogurts in the supermarket are just thickened with gelatin, so they're not real yogurt. They're not really fermented. I like to get the easy yo, or I understand you can do that in the new Thermomix as well. Make your own yogurt. That's amazing. Anyone else try something regularly with fermented foods? Have a favorite, or a beverage? It's actually one of the best things to give kids instead of soft drinks is a water kefir or a kombucha or something like that that's got some nice bubbles in it. That's lovely. Yeah, apple cider vinegar, if you get the ones that are fermented, has the mother in. I make my salad dressing out of that, and that apple cider vinegar drink that I told you about. And we just, Paul, my fiance, he has some, difficulty with digesting proteins and fats, a bit of a gallbladder issue. And having a little bit of that apple cider vinegar before a meal, especially if it's going to be a bit of a challenging meal, really supports that good gut health. And the benefit is that it's anti-inflammatory in the body, so you reduce arthritis, pain, and that kind of thing as well. So just for the ladies who aren't having it, any reason why you haven't kind of forayed into the realm of fermented foods? Is it just kind of you didn't really think about it, or you're afraid of it? Because some people are afraid of it. Some people don't like all that fermenting. Sourdough is another one that we can make from home, sourdough pancakes. Yeah, you want my apple cider vinegar drink recipe? Ooh, I have to, I'll have to add that one in, Laura. It's a good one. It's a good way to eat. I mean, if you're not used to apple cider vinegar, it can close your throat. But that looks really easy, Laura. That looks like really juicy. And, honestly, a couple of days and then it's ready to eat. If you leave it longer, it's kind of got a deeper flavor, but within a couple of days, you can do that.
I was trying to come off mute, but my hands were wet. So I think processing it in the Thermomix really just helps get that moisture out compared to slicing it by hand. So it's just easier. And then I don't know if you saw, I was really squeezing it. But now once it's in the jar, I've still got more to put in, but I'll push it down. You can use a wooden spoon, or I'm using the end of a rolling pin. You really want to squeeze it down as much as you can, because we need every bit of that cabbage to be sitting in the juice.
Yeah.
And then you leave about a 3 centimeter gap up the top, because it's going to rise. And even once you've put your lid on and you're storing it in the pantry, if you want to put it in a bowl, just in case some of the liquid does spill out, because in that fermenting process it can rise up. But yeah, just really, I'm squeezing it down so much, and then I'll keep adding more in. But you want to make sure it's all submerged in the liquid. And then at the very top, I'll keep doing this, but at the very top, you can put some sort of weight to keep it submerged. And I actually plan on putting the outer leaf of the cabbage, if you fold it up, you can put it in that 3 centimeter gap where you're not fermenting. And this just becomes a bit of a filler, I guess. Yeah. Okay. I think it's a thing that most people do, maybe. Yeah, I heard it from someone. And then the lid on top. So I'll keep doing that while Brenda moves on to, I think you were going to do another recipe for
Yes, I was. And I won't get through this one, but I'll get started on it. And it's another traditional recipe that's gone out of favor and needs to come back, especially if ladies, if you're looking after grandkids or kids that aren't well. Two things I'm going to talk about together, because we're not going to have time to do both of them individually. But the two most nutritious, most gut healing, extraordinary foods that we don't usually have enough of is bone broth and liver. So, bone broth is one of the best things you can do for gut health, especially if there's gut problems. And you have, chicken broth. It's basically chicken noodle soup without the noodles or the carrots or the chicken. And so soothing and healing to the gut, and super easy to make either in the Thermomix. Although my Thermomix at least is not big enough, I like to fill up the slow cooker and do it in the slow cooker, and then I use the broth in my Thermomix recipe. So I've got pumpkin soup for tomorrow night. I haven't put any water in it. It's all broth, and that's very healing for the gut. And then the liver. I mean, some of you like me might have grown up with mothers that gave us offal and organ meats and gone, yuck, kidneys, yeah. And I got recently reintroduced to it and started. My mum was always into liverwurst. She loved liverwurst. One of the textbooks or books that I use as my Bible is this one by Sally Fallon, who's the president of the Western Price Foundation. And this has lots and lots of traditional recipes in it. And her pate recipe is pretty much the only one I really like. I haven't tried a gazillion, but you know how you sort of, if you find something, you stick to it. And so I make the meat part of it, I cook that in the fry pan because it needs to simmer down and all the juices evaporate. So I do that in the fry pan, but everything else, like chopping the vegetables and mixing it all up at the end with the butter and everything, that all happens in the Thermomix. And Laura sent me a Thermomix recipe for pate, which you could easily follow. But I've adapted the Sally Fallon one, the Western Price one, for the Thermomix, just because that's the recipe that I really love. And it has what they call green onions, which I believe are spring onions. And so I have a whole bunch of spring onions, which I'm just going to munch in the Thermomix and then start frying them up. It feels a little bit late to be cooking, doesn't it? Are all of you in New South Wales, or some of you in Queensland where it's an hour earlier? But we want nice onion flavour. So onions and garlic are one of the most naturally antimicrobial, blood cleansing, immune boosting, plus they're very flavoursome. They've got sulphur in them. Sulphur is very good for the liver, for detoxification, which is why garlic particularly is so good for blood health, for blood pressure, for infections, everything. Garlic is just like, absolute magic stuff. And we want to bring it into our foods as we do. We typically put onions and garlic in most things homemade, don't we? So that it's not just for flavour. Personally, the way that I eat and the way that I cook now, that I follow the Western Price principles, is the most therapeutic foods are the most, and the most nourishing foods and the most nutrient dense foods are the tastiest. They have a depth of flavour, like that sort of that grandmother umami feel about them. It's absolutely beautiful. And I think if we cooked more like that, with broths and butters like the French do, with cream and all those beautiful nourishing foods that are rich in vitamin A and D and other fat-soluble nutrients, our kids would actually eat better because it tastes so good. You fry your potatoes or you bake your potatoes in beef tallow that you've collected from your beef broth and, these kinds of things. It's very traditional but very healing. So let me just cut that up and I'll put my fry pan on and some butter. It's 3 tablespoons of butter. I'm not afraid of butter. I think it's my favourite food on the planet. I love it salted. I love it unsalted. I love it in everything. I love it on vegetables. I love it on my own homemade sourdough, which I actually need in the Thermomix. This time today, I bought the beautiful mainland organic. I think the New Zealand grass-fed is also good. Just don't be afraid of butter. It doesn't raise cholesterol levels. That's all a myth. There's a whole story out there about cholesterol that's very incorrect. Just a bit longer. Yum. All right, so that's munched up my onions all nicely. And then all I do, there's a couple of things. I actually just bought some chicken livers from the supermarket. Some of you might be able to buy them from organic providers, which would be even better. You can soak them in milk and that takes away any extra over flavour. So, it sort of drains them even more. the thing about livers is the liver doesn't store toxins, it just filters them. So you don't have to worry about buildup of toxins. But I think if you're a bit sensitive to the flavour, soaking it in milk first is a good thing to do. So I'm going to add the onions and the liver to the butter in the pan. Turn it up a little bit and have that fry away. Now we won't get to finish this, I realise that. Where's my little thing? But just want to encourage you to rediscover liver. And if you're a bit fussy about it, which I can totally understand, find a fabulous pate recipe. And, you know, this recipe has white wine in it, has mushrooms in it, has spring onions in it, and dried mustard, dried dill, dried rosemary, lemon juice, and is absolutely divine. And you just keep a little bit in the fridge. Pate and liver is a food that you would traditionally give to women who are wanting to fall pregnant. Has all the nutrients in it for fertility. It's something you would have while you're pregnant to keep your iron levels up, because of course it's very rich in iron. And then also when you're breastfeeding, when you need all those nutrients, this is a superfood, a wonder food. And you know, just being so nourishing, it's great for gut health and supporting the gut health really supports immune health, it's skin health, it's all connected. Everything starts in the gut. So beautiful liver, it's just so nutrient packed, it's amazing. And along with broth, I mean, the other way to have liver that I recommend is, especially if you're cooking for kids who may, curl up their nose or what do they do with their nose? You know, they don't really like it. You make up batches of mince and you mix it up in the Thermomix so it's a liquid. It comes out almost like a thick juice. And you put a little bit, not too much, put a little bit in all of your mince dishes. You hide it in. Just hide it in.
I was about to say, Brenda, that's the only way I've put livers and beef hearts and things like that into our diet, is because I've not really been a fan of pate. Is I mince it up in the Thermomix and add it into mince dishes like bolognese and Mexican, and no one knows. So.
No. And I do that with chicken hearts too. Chicken hearts are rich in nutrients that are very good for the heart, as you can imagine. And I'll put those in occasionally in chicken mince dishes and slow cooker meals, and people don't even know they're in there. They're actually quite delicious. So Denise mentioned that her reflux is worse from fire tonic. Fire tonic is probably pretty rough to start with. I would start with maybe 100 mils of water with a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar and just sip on it and work up very slowly if you've got reflux. It can really, really help reflux and indigestion and heartburn, but you've got to ease into it slowly. Any other questions, gut questions, constipation, diarrhea, liver, wind, sugar cravings, anything that you would like? Celery juice, yeah, amazing. It's got all that beautiful sodium in it. Bloating, the first thing you do is you get rid of gluten. I know that's sad, and I wouldn't swap it for all the gluten-free stuff. You've got to go a little bit keto and have less grain, because grain upsets the pancreas, and bloating is usually associated with the pancreas. It's where all your digestive enzymes come from. Either that, or you take a digestive enzyme, or you try the apple cider vinegar. But generally I find if you remove at least most of your, if you really minimize your bread, minimize your wheat and grains, bloating disappears completely. So great question. Thank you. Any other questions? So while you're thinking of questions, let me just say that I will be, I think I've already sent Laura a couple of recipes for you. And if any of you are experiencing horrible menopause and would love some support with that, then do reach out. I offer a complimentary chat, complimentary cuppa, if you want to have a chat about it first, and I'm happy to do that. So the basis of my treatment is food, real food, not too many supplements, and real healing. So I think it's great that you're all here learning more about how to make the kitchen your medicine cabinet, which is my absolute passion. So Laura, anything you'd like me to say or do as a wrap up?
No, just whatever you wanted to share about gut health. I will be sending links to your socials and your website tomorrow if anyone wants more info. So yeah, just whatever you wanted to say.
Thank you. Well, I'm just frying up my liver here with the onions. I'm going to chop up the mushrooms, add that, and then add the wine, and there's a few other things. And then it just cooks down so the liquid disappears. And then I let it cool and then mix it up in the Thermomix so it's all lovely and smooth. And then I put a little bit in the fridge and little bit in little pots, and they go in the freezer. And I've got pate for months. And it really is a teaspoon, every couple of days. It really is great. If you're experiencing any condition, any disease, any pain, your diet can really help you. So I'll leave it at that. I can smell it bubbling away now.
Yeah, that's great. And I'll send the Thermomix recipe for pate and Brenda's recipe so you can choose which one works better for you. Before we end, I just wanted to show you, in case you're wanting to find more ways to help your gut health using your Thermomix, this cookie dough just makes it really easy. I just started typing in gut earlier and I found all these great recipes that come up that are good for gut health. You know, miso is a really good ingredient with that because it's fermented soy. And you know, there's other recipes that come up just from typing gut. Another one you can type in is fermented and just see what comes up. You know, fermented beetroot dip. Just all these great recipes that come up to help be healthy. You know, you could type in keto or low carb or whatever, but yeah, all your yogurts and kimchi. Yeah, so many great recipes, but typing in, you don't have to know what you're going to cook for it to come up in Cookie Dough. You can type in a keyword and they just come up. So I found that really helpful. So I just thought I would share that with you all as well. But
I've just grabbed my chocolates out of the freezer.
Ooh.
So I'm actually going to eat one in front of you. Sorry, guys.
I want to come over. I know where you live.
Guiltless, yum. So.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for sharing that,
Laura,
Brenda.
for having me on.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. So, yeah, so we will wrap up now, 8:30. If anyone has any questions, I will end the recording in a minute and you can come off mute or you can keep putting them in chat. We'll just stay for a couple more minutes just in case, but otherwise reply to the email tomorrow and I can help you with whatever, whether it's you're interested in more info about the Thermomix or about gut health or about what Brenda does. I can help you with them all. I've been with Thermomix for 12 years now, so I can hopefully answer any Thermomix questions you have. Yep, we'll find the white chocolate recipe as well. Denise is asking for the white chocolate recipe, so we'll add that in.
I actually didn't use a recipe.
You just do it?
I just kind of made like a regular chocolate recipe and left out the cocoa powder.
Oh, there you go.
So
easy.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Well, that's the recipe. That is the recipe. You use the normal one, but leave out the cocoa. So there you go. Easy. Cool. All right. Yeah. Okay. I will end the recording. Thanks again. Please feel free to leave or stay on if you have questions. And thanks for joining.